I went from 4 hospitalizations in the psych ward for manic psychosis, the worst, most debilitating bipolar disorder, to full recovery where my illness is in remission. I don't have symptoms anymore. I don't have manias. My mood is stable. I'm able to work, have incredible relationships. So, in this video, you guys, I want to take you through my story in a little bit more detail. What happened to me? What were the timelines? How I recovered when I was sick? And I think it will be useful just to give you guys some context so you can understand how long this took, how long a process the recovery was. So I'll go through, when I was sick, my illness, when I found metabolic therapies, how I was able to recover, taper down on my medications, all the different therapies I've used. So let's get into this. It's a crazy story, and I'm excited to share it all with you. So in 2015, I was a freshman in college, and I was living a hectic lifestyle, to say the least. I was at Cal, UC Berkeley, taking all these engineering and computer science courses. I was pledging a fraternity. I was doing a lot of drinking, a lot of marijuana, a lot of partying, but also trying to keep up with my course load. So there's just a lot going on, and I wasn't sleeping too well. So I remember getting mono that winter between of my freshman year in college, and then in March, that's when the mania hit. Right. So smoking a lot of weed, I started sleeping less and less every night. I slept 4 hours a night, then 3 hours a night for a couple nights. And it got to the point where I was not sleeping at all. I think I went 5 or 6 days with literally no sleep at all. And I had full-blown manic psychosis. I mean, I had delusions. I thought I was Plato reincarnated. I remember sitting on the curb, like watching the cars pass all night, just having these crazy delusions. So as a result, my parents took me to a psychiatrist, and he offered me this pill. He said, Matt, you should take this pill. This is an antipsychotic. It's called olanzapine. And I refused the pill. I thought this was a test of my spiritual enlightenment, the fact that he was giving me this pill, because my psychosis had such a strong spiritual component to it. So I refused. The next morning, I went to the hospital. I was, a bunch of dudes pinned me down. They forced me to take this medication. I had a medication shot, forced injection. And then I ended up in the psych ward. And I spent 2 weeks in the psych ward in full-blown mania here at Stanford in Northern California. And I just remember being so terrified in the psych ward I thought I was never going to get out. It's a very scary place to be with the white walls in the middle of all that mania. So I was there for 2 weeks. And for the next 2 years, I would be hospitalized 3 more times. And it was just chaos. It was me, getting out, going to a treatment center, trying a different medication, seeing a new doctor. I went to treatment centers all over the country. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything because the illness was so debilitating. And I think for those 2 years, from 2016 to 2018, I was just in more and more severe manic episodes. I don't think I was ever really stable. It got to the point where I ran away from home towards the end of that year, 2017. I was running around on the streets of Los Angeles, talking to crazy people and just doing all kinds of nonsense and abusing a lot of drugs and alcohol. And it's funny, like I look at people talking to themselves on the streets now. And if my dad had not found me at a Starbucks with a bag full of my stuff, and somehow still had my computer getting, hygiene complaints from the people at Starbucks because I had been running around on the streets for a few weeks, manic, I would be talking to myself. I would be homeless if he hadn't found me. So I went to the psych ward, and that was my last visit to the psych ward. And I got out in January of 2018. So I went to another treatment center in 2018, and I was on a bunch of medication. I was still psychotic. I thought I was receiving personal messages through YouTube from spiritual gurus. So I thought these guys were projecting personal messages to me that only I could understand, which is wild. It's a crazy thought, but I was in full-blown manic psychosis, type 1 bipolar, where I believed this stuff, right? I thought this was real. So I was at this treatment center here in California, and I had a moment of insight in February or March of 2018 where I realized for the first time that something was wrong. I realized for the first time that something was wrong with how my life was going. And up until that point, I couldn't really put the pieces together. I didn't understand the severity of my own illness, of my own condition, even though the consequences were obvious. I was hospitalized, I couldn't go to school, but I couldn't really figure it out. And then I had this moment of insight in 2018 in March, around there. And I realized something was wrong. And I remember talking to my mom and I said, wow, I have to get well. I have to figure this out. And that's where the recovery started. I mean, I didn't have keto yet, right? So I didn't have a ketogenic diet. But at that point, I tried to put the pieces together. So I started exercising. I started tracking my sleep. And those next 3 years, so January of 2018 until 2021, was me just trying to keep my mood stable. And it was so hard because I had a lot of destabilizing stuff still at the time, a lot of caffeine, cigarettes, etc. I was still drinking on and off, doing drugs, but I was tracking my mood. And so I would have these manic episodes come on. I would wake up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m., and I would track this in a spreadsheet. And then I would look and I would say, wow, I'm getting manic. I woke up at 4 a.m. today. And then I would have to take extra antipsychotic medication to just bring that mania down. And so I got very astute at watching my moods and watching for those manic episodes. And I was doing some things right. I was exercising. I was trying to take better care of myself, but I still wasn't well. And my brain still was not working properly. So I still couldn't make an appointment to go to the dentist. My executive functioning was not working properly. Work was out of I could do jobs that didn't require much cognitive load, but a difficult job with a lot of moving parts was out of the question for me. And so those were tough 3 years. I started coming off of benzodiazepine medication during those 3 years. So I was on a bunch of Valium, or I was on a bunch of Ativan. We would cross taper over to Valium because that has a longer half-life. And then I started to taper off. So I started to taper down on some of the benzos, but I just wasn't well. And into 2020, I finally got my substance abuse handled. I stopped drinking. I stopped doing drugs in 2020 in the summer, but I still was having trouble. And I was having trouble with these manic episodes, and they would just come on. And wow, I was in for a difficult life. So things were looking bleak in 2020, but fortunately, my mom found Dr. Chris Palmer's work, and she posed this idea to me in the fall of 2020. It was around there. It was right after COVID, right in the middle of COVID. She said, Matt, I found this guy. He uses a ketogenic diet to treat his bipolar, depression, schizophrenia patients, anxiety. Would you be interested in doing a ketogenic diet? And I had known that diet had to have been a part of this. I just didn't know what to eat. I didn't know what was the right thing to eat. And so my mom told me, and I said, yeah, I think we should do ketogenic diet. And so in January of 2021, I went on a ketogenic diet with the help of a dietitian and a psychiatrist, metabolic psychiatrist, and that is where everything changed. So I went on a ketogenic diet, you guys, in 2021. I was battling manias. I was taking a lot of medication. I was taking high antipsychotic doses of medication just to bring my mood back. I went on a ketogenic diet and I tracked my ketone levels twice a day. And the difference was unbelievable. My manic episodes stopped. There's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to describe the effect that a ketogenic diet had on me, that my manic episodes stopped in January. And I did not change any other variables in my life during those 3 months, right? So I went through March. March is the season when we have a lot of mood issues, the people who have bipolar, because the days are becoming longer rapidly. So a lot of people go super manic in March. It's common. And I had always gone manic. I'd always had severe manic episodes every single March up until that year. So from 2016 to 2020, I always had a manic episode. And I went through that March, 5 milligrams of olanzapine, no mania, no depression. It's just remarkable. It's wild to think that a change in my diet had that profound an impact on my mood. And, we know now what this is, what a ketogenic diet does, which is allowing the brain to run on ketones rather than glucose. So it's entirely changing the fuel source that the brain uses to run. And it's resolving that energy imbalance that causes these psychiatric illnesses in many cases, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, things like that, right? So I went on ketogenic diet and boom, my manias were gone. And it's like everything just fell into place at that point. I was able to finish school. I was in school at the time. I'd had to go do music instead of physics or math or something else I wanted because those courses were just too challenging for me because of my illness. So I got my degree in music and my mood got stable and I was able to start work in 2022. And I've been, employed full time for 3 years, coming up on 3 years now. Actually over 3 years now, which is insane. It's wild. But yeah, everything fell into place and I was able to start to taper down on my medication. So I got completely off benzodiazepines that year in the fall of 2021. I continued to taper down on my meds. I got off lithium completely. I got my dose of antipsychotic way down. I'm on a couple meds now that I'm just tapering off very slowly because the withdrawals are so severe. And I've had protracted withdrawal this last year, which has been very difficult because we went down on my anticonvulsant too quickly. I dropped about 30% in like a month, which was too fast. But I've been able to work through it. I've been able to go to work and maintain relationships and maintain my sobriety and support myself. Like it's wild. And I really owe it all to ketogenic diet, to God. I have a pretty disciplined character, so I can go to bed early and do the sleep and do the exercise. But you guys, it's been sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, mindfulness, relationships, sunlight, just basic stuff that have done more for me than these medications ever did. These meds are useful in acute scenarios, right? So someone comes in fully blown psychotic. Medication is probably useful, antipsychotic medication, just to bring them down. But over the long term, ketogenic diet did more for me than any of these meds did. And we're discovering now, as we do more research and we get all of these anecdotal reports of people, and wow, I started ketogenic diet. I've been depressed for 20 years. I started ketogenic diet. Within a week, 2 weeks, I can't believe how I feel. I've never felt this way. I've never felt this good. We hear this over and over again. We hear this from people over and over constantly as wow. I was sick. I was sick for 5 years. My daughter was sick for a decade. Started ketogenic diet, started metabolic therapies, quit caffeine, started sleeping well, physical exercise, and they're a functional human being again. So it's wild. We are in the midst of a movement to help people take on metabolic therapies for their mental illnesses, and even people who don't have mental illnesses, just to feel better. People who have, issues with their temper or anxiety or issues with motivation or low energy, brain fog, just so many things. Taking control of metabolic health is an unbelievable tool. It is life-changing, truly life-changing. So I'm just so excited to be a part of this, and I'm so grateful to you all for tuning into the channel and helping us support this channel, because we need to get this message out to everyone who's suffering with these illnesses. But people need to know that they can use these tools to potentially put their mental illnesses into complete remission. Mothers, fathers who have kids in their 20s who are failing to launch because they're depressed, like, keto diet, man. Keto diet is the answer, among many other things, sleep, diet, exercise, all of those. So this is a bit more about my story. I hope this provides a little bit of color for you all to understand how profoundly sick I was. I was a hopeless case of type 1 bipolar. Medication non-compliant for many years, and then treatment resistant, where, normal things in life, career, relationships, romantic relationship, marriage, kids, were all question marks for me. They were big question marks. And those are all on the table now because of metabolic therapies. And so I'm just so grateful to all the doctors who treated me over the years, all the doctors who are starting to investigate these treatments and take them on and learn about them and treat their patients with these methods. I'm so grateful to y'all. So, okay, I think that's all for me. This has been a long video. I will see you all soon, and let me know, subscribe and let me know which videos you want me to make, because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about with mental illness, with what it's like to live with these conditions, to how to recover, to stigma, to, there's so many videos I want to make. Traveling on keto is another one I want to make. So make sure to subscribe, you guys. Subscribe, like, comment, please. Comment so we can bump this video in the algorithm, just so more people can see it. So comment how you're doing, how metabolic therapies are going for you. Okay, that's all. See you all in the next video.